All right, welcome back. If you would go ahead and place your name and campus in the chat. Just a few more seconds and we'll get started. So if you would place your name and campus in the chat. Okay, let's get started here. All right, so welcome to week 6. We haven't taken any breaks. We'll just push those toward the end. All right, and so you all do know that the last class takes their exam on Friday. So the exam analysis will happen, Friday after that class ends. So usually by is it I think it's 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The class have finished, and then we should have completed the exam review. So just look for scores then. We will turn on homework grades this week. Just as a reminder, remember that the homework grades are not valid if it's like you have to have at a minimum of 78% with both in order for the homework grades to count and in order for the key graded assignments to all be factored in. So just keep that in mind. We do have, let me share, let's look at the courses, see when we take our next exam. I think it's week 10. I'm almost sure it's week 10. So week 10 is another big week where several courses take the exam in week 10, just as it was in week 4. So if you're taking more than one class, make sure you start looking at your schedule, thinking about what's going to work so that you can do your best, whether or not it's being proctored on campus or just rearranging your schedule, whatever is going to work for you. So start looking at that. So we are in week 6. We just took exam 2. And just as a reminder, let me go back to this professional development plan and then the position paper. If you have turned in similar or even the same assignment in other classes at other schools, just as a reminder, make sure that you go back in and paraphrase, do insight inside of your paper citations, and make sure you list the references on the reference page. If you do not, your plagiarism score is going to be high because it picks up that you've already turned that paper in or something really similar. So even if you were at another school, just make sure that you go back in and rework the assignments that you turn in because your plagiarism score will be high. And then you have to rework it and or be cited for plagiarism. So just keep that in mind, even if it was the same assignment at another school or this school or a similar. So just make sure you just go back in and do those insight citations inside of your papers. All right. So we will next week take quiz 4. Don't forget to post your discussion questions, initial post by that Wednesday, and then your follow-up 2 peer responses by that Sunday. Week 8, you do have NCLEX questions. At a minimum, make sure that you're turning in at least a 78%. You can retake those NCLEX questions, complete what's required, the 25 questions, and then submit your highest score. And then week 9, we skip a week from taking a quiz. So week 8, we do not take a quiz. But then you have another one in week 5, and then week 10 is the last exam before the HESI. Week 10 is also the week where several other courses. So check your schedules and look and see so you can pre-plan whether or not that's changing up, your work schedule, if it's changing up this exam being proctored or the other exam being proctored on campus. So just look at that. For sure, no later than week 9. Some campuses start as early as week 8, sending out information for the HESI, which takes place in week 11. Just as a reminder, Usually HESIs are not given this time of night. And some HESIs, depending on the campus, some are given on a whole different day of the week that your class is actually on. So just keep that in mind. Just put a pin in it so you can, adjust yourself accordingly and or have a conversation with your campus dean. It's campus specific on that. And then, of course, week 12, we meet briefly to review usually our stats for that, for your HESIs. So that's where we're at. Make sure that you place your campus and your name back in the chat. Just as a reminder, these sessions are recorded and they are viewed by the attendance administrators. And then, of course, the exam grades will be posted after the analysis that will take place on Friday after the last class takes their exam. So I found this new little button on Kahoot. So I want to just I want you all to kind of talk us through this here. So I want to share my screen, my first time doing this on Kahoot. So hopefully all goes well. So I need you to just review the screen and then just tell me what you think I need to select. I think this is how this is going to work. So I haven't used this one before. So this is a little thing right here in the way. Hold on, y'all. Let me move this up here. Okay. So it says a skill set needed for an effective leader or manager. Now I need you all to tell me what should I be clicking on. And then this is the learning tab in Kahoot. I'm waiting on your responses.
Red.
Communication. Oh, blue, yellow. Blue.
Red.
All of them.
Yeah, green. All of them.
Green.
I don't know if it's going to give us our feedback. Okay, it does give our feedback instantly. Okay, so this is a different way of looking at the same content. All right, so here we go. Leadership inspires trust, but does not produce change.
True.
Leadership.
I'm only hearing one response. So we want to go with true.
Okay.
False.
I thought false, yeah.
Okay, so going back, test taking tip, and we'll look at this again in a different format. Remember, the entire selection or answer choice must be correct. If part of it is not correct, then we don't select it. Watch for words like but, not, and all. Okay, here we go. The mission of an organization defines its purpose.
True.
True. So that mission tells us what are we doing? What services do we provide? Why do we exist? For example, if you have hospital AYZ, on the north side, what is their purpose? Why are they there? What is their mission? Okay. All right. So which leadership style is autocratic? Autocratic.
Yellow.
We're going with yellow?
Yellow.
Okay. Okay. Look at those root words. Some words, some terms, concepts have root words in them that can help you. Which leadership style is democratic?
Red.
Okay.
Red.
I'm hearing red. Okay. Okay. Which leadership style is laissez-faire?
Blue.
Blue.
Okay, I'm hearing blue. Skill set needed in order to create a less stressful work environment.
Red, blue, green.
Red, blue, and green. Yeah.
Yeah, all.
Red, blue,
Green.
green, and I didn't hear yellow, but I heard all.
No, not.
No,
not
yellow.
yellow.
Not yellow.
What's wrong with yellow?
Because you want it to be
You don't want to be-
organized.
You want it to be organized. Again,
Yeah,
a
you
test
want it to be
taking
organized.
tip. Yes, so make sure when you're selecting your answers, take the time to go back and reread just to make sure what you're seeing is actually, because when you first glance, I guess your eyes see the organized part,
Right.
but it says disorganized. So then that's a whole different word.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, test taking tip. Yeah. Uh-oh. What was wrong?
Can you go back?
It said some staff. It
Some
should be all
staff.
staff.
Some staff. It should be all. Got it. And I don't think, wait a minute, yeah, it'll let me go back. Hold on. Yeah, it let me go back. So, but she's right. Some. Let's go back to that other one. What was the other one that we missed? Let's see. It was, okay, does not. It does produce change. Leadership inspires trust and produces change. Okay, that was the other one. Okay, got it. Okay, let's see here. All right, I think this is where we're at. Let's see. Yes, okay. Organization is not needed for skill in order to create a less stressful work environment. So is organization, is it needed? It's saying it's not needed.
It's false.
No, it's false.
False.
Yep, we need some organization. Even in the midst of the chaos, somebody go bad, we still need somebody that's gonna pull, step up and be in charge. Give those information is what we need to do next, those reminders. Okay.
True.
Appropriate equipment for staff to get the job done is needed in order to create a less stressful work environment. I've heard true.
Yeah, true.
Okay, I don't hear any falses. Okay. Which of the following is an example of verbal communication? So the main concept is verbal communication.
Green,
Red,
red, and yellow.
And yellow.
yellow.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
The tone.
It should be pain, yes or no, because it say verbal communication.
So what is tone? We actually do what with that? We hear the tone, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They facial expressions, we see it.
Mhm.
So verbal communication, people says yes or no, and then they rate their pain as 6. They're stating we actually hear that too. So this slide right here, I agree with you all. It should be tone as well. So I have to go in and correct that one. Then if these things are just my cahoots now. So they're not, that one's incorrect. I need to correct that one because we actually hear the tone. Okay. All right. Abraham's Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory levels. What are those levels?
All of them?
All of these? That's what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. At Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, most important, but located on the bottom. Because usually we think, something that's most important will be at the top. But his hierarchy of needs has the most important on the bottom. If these things are not addressed, the rest of the stuff can be we can wait on those things.
What
Red.
is physiological? Red.
Okay, let's see. All right. Yes, if I can't breathe, I don't have any place to stay. I'm not worried about the other stuff on the train. Not just yet. Okay. Abraham's hierarchy of needs theory, most important, but located on the bottom level. What is that? We said it was physiological. Now we need to apply the concept. What does that mean? Physiological. Let me go back.
Red.
Green.
You said physiological. Okay. So you said red and green.
Red, green.
Red and green. Okay. Let's
Yellow.
see. Okay. So yes, if I can't breathe, I'm not worried about any of those other things. But I don't have anywhere to live. I'm not worried about those things just yet. Okay. Which of the following is an example of nonverbal communication?
Gestures and facial expressions.
And
Oh, no.
We said gestures and facial.
Nonverbal. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, let's see.
we
Why
can
we
hear
just-
it.
Yep, that's why I was thinking we hear it exactly. This is something that's said. Okay, nonverbal communication, transfer of information from one person to another without the use of words or spoken language. Is that
True.
nonverbal communication? Okay. Wait. Verbal communication, transfer of information from one person to another without the use of words or spoken language.
True.
You're saying true?
Oh, wait, no, false,
That's,
false.
it's false.
Is it false?
Yes.
False.
Okay. Those
It
little
should
words that changes
say
everything.
without.
Okay. All right. So let me stop sharing. So now I'm gonna do this now since we did that all together. Let me just give you a little bit of information why that's. Let me go back to, let's see, restart the practice. Like I said, that was a new button I found on Cahoots. Didn't know it was there. Now I know we used to use something else, and it did have all those different ways you can review the content, which is good because we all have different learning styles, and as we look at things different ways, it just helps us to better understand it. So, of course, the mission statement is why we exist. If we have an organization, we're providing shoes, clean socks. It's the purpose of why that organization actually exists. And so it is needed because once people are seeking out resources, they need to know, well, what happens at that place? Why do I need to go to that place? And then your mission aligns with the different activities, with the services that you provide, the different activities, even like your fundraising and things like that. They all kind of just go hand in hand. And so we are leaders, and is in order to make our shift go in our work environment to kind of flow without now things are going to happen now, no matter how organized we are, no matter how much staff we have, no matter how much equipment that we have, and how we come into that calm environment, things just happen. But it is good to have everything organized. So in the midst of the chaos, you can still move forward and still provide that best care. We want to treat everyone with respect, create that calm environment, even in the midst of like I said, in the midst of the storm. We'll talk about it here where you're that leader at that long-term care facility. Something happens. The fire alarm goes off. A person drives through the front door in a vehicle because things happen. I never forget we were just the residents were out doing, I don't know, was some type of activity. The ice cream truck came by and they love to go get the ice cream truck. This little visitor was coming by, and for some reason she, I guess, hit go instead of brakes when she was trying to park. So she jumped the little curve. So things can happen instantly. So making sure, providing that guidance, having equipment available so that staff can get their job. People working in the emergency room, med surge, wherever you're at. If it says check blood pressure every 4 hours, how am I going to check if I don't have the equipment? Dress and change, where the supplies is. So having that equipment, creating that calm environment, making sure that your shift is organized. And we, of course, want to treat everyone with respect. So verbal and nonverbal. Verbal is those things that we hear, that sound comes from, that we hear that sound. Even if a person cannot speak clearly, if they're mumbling, we still hear that mumble. That's still a verbal because that's a sound that we actually hear. If they are rating their pain, if they're describing their pain, all that's verbal. So nonverbal are those things that, where sound doesn't come from. We see the facial grimace. We see the person pulling back. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you do need to know that triangle. But the way that is listed, you would think the most important thing or that foundation would be at the top. But no, it works from the bottom up. If I can't breathe, I'm not worried about any of those other things. Storm just happened. I don't have anywhere to live. I'm worried about shelter. So you all were correct in stating that the physiological needs is the foundation. And people, we can go up and down that triangle all day long. Let a storm come through, or let loss of job, a new onset of a condition, where it affects our breathing or our quality of life. And it's just a constant thing. Just because we're in the middle, that means we stay there. We can go up and down. But at the bottom is those physiological needs that we have. So we talked about this kind of last week, the week before last, about situational, and how what's going on in the environment or where you're actually at affects your communication. For example, the alarms are going off, phones are going off, and then you're in trying to assess a patient. They don't feel good. And so they're less likely to communicate with you, but based on the situation, communicate effectively with you based on the situation. And so as a result of that, and then sometimes depends on, like I mentioned about we had the residents out front, the little lady jumped the curb. The situation changed. So we had to change in what we were doing. So our demands have to meet whatever the situation is going on. So we were talking about being in the situation, how it does affect communication. But now we're talking about situation as a leadership style, where your style may change based on the situation. If there is a storm coming through and there's a tornado warning where you're at, so then our leadership style will change based on that situation, according to what is actually going on. We talked about laissez-faire. Usually that leadership style is just focused on what everybody wants. It is what it says it is, laissez-faire. There's no end goal in sight. It's like whatever, take your break when you want to. We'll just feed the residents when we can. There is no change or producing of change with that laissez-faire. So we do need to be effective managers. We talked about it. You all got it correct. We need to be problem solvers. We need to be able to manage our time, because even though a conflict or something happens, a situation changes, we still have to be able to manage our time, get those persons from that area of harm to a safe place. We have to be able to communicate effectively and critically think at a moment's notice. So leadership does inspire trust and it does produce change. So let's do the Kahoot in a different way. Let's host a live and I'll be quiet and everyone's on their own. Let me get it loaded here. Let me share my screen. All right, so you can log in at least with your initials, and the code is bar back 4843796. This one's keyed wrong, so I'm gonna skip this one. Okay.
You're on mute, Professor.
Okay. Getting ready to go over our content here. Downloaded it. Here it is.
Dr. Ford, sorry, did you say that this content for the next exam or a quiz?
Both.
Okay.
It's both. Okay, so after work we go. Let me share my screen here. And the HESI, because so hopefully start going back at this point. Start going back to week 1, week 2, looking at those recordings, the live exam reviews, because remember you're prepping for the next exam, and also the HESI is everything. It's everything. Okay, so after work we go. Let's see here. Beginning. All right, so the mission statement. What does the mission statement tell us about the healthcare facility?
I like about the purpose.
Okay. Defines the purpose of that organization. This is the same information, you just looking at it in a different way. So it tells us their why. Why does this facility exist? If I walk into these doors, what service? What am I going to gain from, going to that place? Am I going to receive rehab? Am I going to receive acute care? Why does that organization exist? So leadership should inspire trust and produces change, even if something bad happens, because your leadership style, you've established that rapport, that trust with your coworkers and with the other team members. Even if something goes wrong, that they're not afraid to come tell you. So, and as a result of that, we should be able to revise policies and change up what we do. So this is what it's talking about when it's saying produces change. So leadership should inspire trust in the midst of good times and bad times. And then because sometimes we do need to revise or look at what we're doing, our steps to our end point in a facility. So we might have to, change it up. And we'll talk about the spirit of inquiry here too, probably next week. And I'll just go ahead and mention it to you. So the spirit of inquiry is where we challenge traditional ways of doing things in hopes of doing things better, achieving the same results or better results with less resources, less time, and so forth and so forth. But that spirit of inquiry and leadership, it should produce change. Leadership is about helping others reach their potential while also ensuring that the team achieves its goals. And our goals is providing the best care we can for our patients, identifying, their needs, and matching them up with what's out, the resources that are available. And then maybe you all may create some resources as you continue your journey in healthcare. You can identify a need that's there, but there's not a resource. So you may become entrepreneurs and create something. So leadership. So tell me about the skills of an effective leader. What skill set do we need to be effective? We said it produces trust and inspires change.
Communication.
Mm-hmm.
Organization.
Okay. Communication, organization.
Problem solving.
All right. Being able to manage that time. The
Listening
employer.
skills.
Say that again, Brittany.
Listening skills.
Listening skills, yes, part of that communication. Exactly. That time manager, that employer wants you to take care, provide that best care within in the frame of your time frame that you're scheduled to work. There are some times that you'll run over, but it shouldn't be all the time. So they want you to manage your time wisely. And to identify things that need to be changed so that you can provide that best care within your time frame. So that you can go home to your families or go on your way once your shift ends. But yes, critical thinking, communication, time management, problem solving. And think about what each of these, we were to do a bullet point under each one, what does that encompass? What does that mean? Good communication, listening skills, like she said. Good. As a leader, you want to create a less stressed environment. What should we do? What should the nurse do to create that less stressful as we can?
Have
Make sure you got
communication.
enough staff.
Enough staff. Did someone say equipment? Did I hear that? Okay. We want to treat everyone with respect. Even if we disagree, we still should remain respectful to one another. Create that calm environment, be organized, and have the equipment available so that we can do our jobs. Okay. Laissez-faire, democratic, and situational. We do need to know the difference in those. Make sure the words there's some root words in these that kind of clue you in. Some concepts are like that, that could clue you in as to what they're actually talking about. We don't have autocratic up here, but that autocratic is auto. That self-governing, that person makes that decision and that's it. Democratic, we take in consideration of what others think and we come up with a common goal for the greater good. Situational, it changes based on that situation. The fire alarm, someone's pulled the fire alarm because there's smoke coming from the laundry. We need to act accordingly. And laissez-faire, we just go with whatever it is. whatever people want to do for that day. And the end game is not really providing the best care for our clients. So here it is. We're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Physiological is on that bottom layer, but it is that foundation: air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. Then it goes up, and we all can go up and down this triangle at any moment's notice. Things can happen, fault of our own or no fault of our own. A storm, a train derails. Things happen. Okay. So hearing impaired considerations, we do want to, which ear do we want to speak in? Which ear should the nurse speak into? If someone is hearing impaired in their right ear, which ear should the nurse speak into?
Left.
Yeah.
The
The
ear
left.
that's not impaired.
That's not, yes.
Got it. Great. The ear that is not impaired because they're having issues with hearing in that ear. Our voice tone should be normal. Talking, we used to think talking louder, the person that helped, but it actually distorts what you're actually saying. So making sure that you're at that normal tone and speaking it into the unaffected ear, the ear that is not impaired. Okay, nonverbal versus verbal. Someone give me a definition in the chat. Let's do the chat. Let me stop sharing real quick. In the chat, tell me what your definition, one-liner of nonverbal. And you can also just give an example of what nonverbal communication is. So we'll give you a minute. Let me turn my timer on. 1 minute. Nonverbal. We are defining nonverbal communication. You can define it and or give us an example. Some things that you've seen in clinical, as you go through your observational sites. Even though our patients don't verbally talk to us, we still can document findings for them. Trying to find this timer, you all. 1 minute timer. So we're assessing pain. This patient does not talk or cannot talk. What are some things that we can still document that we see or we don't see that will tell us or give us an indication if this person is in pain? Let's see here. Let me look at the chat, see what you all are saying here. Okay. Closed fish, facial expressions, head shaking. Yes. Motioning. I think it's just universal. Left or right means no. Up and down means yes. Expression or communication without the use of words. Okay. Pointing. Yes. Writing it down. You have many that have those boards. They create these boards, and they place the little button on whatever it is that they're trying to say. On the boards, they have the most common, responses on these boards. Okay. The letter chart. Someone has a letter chart for our time is up. Letter chart for stroke patients. Great. Even with the call lights, even with those, if they don't have the function, the mobility, the range of motion to press those buttons, and they need help, that's a nonverbal way of notifying us that something they need something. So it's on us to identify that they're having an issue with that, get a different type device for them to use. Okay. All right, we did good with that. Maslow hierarchy of needs. We talked about that. This is just a different way of looking at it. Okay. So we're gonna actually go into the different theories. We do need to know the theories. Lineager is focused on cultural care. All things culture. We have to, understand our own thinking and our own culture, and then also be culturally competent. How do we do that? We find out about the cultures of the people that we take care of. And that is them talking to us, engaging in conversations with them, learning more, even asking, family members or coworkers. Cultural care, though, is Lineager's main point, cultural care. So with that being said, as long as The things that they're asking us to include in their care does not cause us any harm and them any harm. Like they have remedies. Sometimes, I think it's on this next slide where they do, haven't seen it in a long time, this bloodletting. Haven't seen this Vic salve, that cream that you can buy. They'll put it inside their nostrils. But these are, things that people culturally like to include in their care because it's just part of their culture. And as long as it's not causing them any harm or us any harm, usually the doctors will include that as, an order. Even if it's a glass of wine at night before bedtime with, after night meds, things like that. It's included in there as long as it's not causing them any harm or us any harm. But Leninger is big on being culturally competent. So Poplos, we have to know these different phases and their force. Orientation, help to recognize the problem, helps to develop personal and social growth. Sometimes, we don't realize, or our patients may not realize, but this is what the issue is. So helping them recognize that. And then the identification, the client understands the situation and then responds to the nurse providing help. So we're trying, because initially, sometimes with our assistance that we're trying to provide is unwanted because they really don't understand or recognize that, that is something that's needed. And then the exploitation, clients begin to depend on the nurse and they use the help offered. Like the door is open through the orientation identification phase. So now, like, okay, I know you're here to help me. Help me get through whatever this issue is, this problem. And then they cut us loose because now they realize that they've taken ownership, even if they have to identify resources that, new resources, but still they take ownership and help with their care. And so they just kind of, I've got it from here. So our relationship kind of ends at that point. But at that point, the resolution phase, they still reach out, if not to us, to different people to identify resources that they might need. So you do need to know these four phases. Okay. Orem, self-care deficit theory. So self-care deficit, personal care does not meet the therapeutic self-care demands. So self-care deficit, what does deficit mean? That personal care does not meet the therapeutic self-care demands. And so the goal that is directed toward a safer environment for life, health, and well-being. So we want to empower our clients by, identifying, having that conversation. We're the most trusted profession. So we can have those tough conversations with them and then also provide a solution to whatever the issue is so that they can, because we want them to be as independent as possible. Okay. Rosenstock. It is what it is. Health belief. If I do not believe whatever this intervention you're bringing into my family or my town or my community, if I don't believe it's going to do any good, I don't have a perception it's going to help, then I'm more than likely not going to take part in that intervention. So Rosenstock tries to explain why a person will or won't take action to prevent or detect an illness. Why do I need to go get those mammograms? Why do I need to go get a colonoscopy? Why do I need to go put myself through all of that? Having to take off work to prep for the colonoscopy. Oh my. So if I don't believe, that it's important, then I don't take part in those interventions. So perceptions vary and may have no basis in reality. It may be just something that I, think, nothing that's evidence-based. And then beliefs are connected to the existing barriers. If we already know I need to take off work because I got to drive to the neighboring town just to get a mammogram done, then I may not take off work in order to get that exam done. And so because I might not think it's that important right now, it's more important for me to provide for my family. So I need to go to work. I don't believe me taking off work, missing those wages will help me be beneficial to my family. So health belief. All right, so we're going to stop right there.